everyone, welcome back to the Reclaimed Ranch. My name is Tara. Today I want to start doing some holiday Christmas decor. I really want to do like a vintage Santa vignette. So we are going to create some fun items to go into that. And I have this tin here. I just got it for like a couple bucks at a thrift store, giving it a good little scuff sand so that the paint adheres really well. And then I made sure to wipe all that dust off with some alcohol. And so I don't have enough of the DIY, I think it's called Marquee Red from Sonnet's Maker Box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Fusion's cranberry and I'm going to do 2 coats of the cranberry. That way it's going to give me a nice good base. Then I'm going to take that DIY red paint and mix a little bit of salt wash into it to give it some texture, and I'm going to do 1 coat of the salt wash over top, and that's going to be exactly what I want for this project. So this is from the new IOD release. It's called Saint Nick, and it is a really cool vintage Santa. So whenever you use molds, you want to make sure to put some like cornstarch in there so that the air dry clay does not stick to it. It comes out easily. And so I'm just kind of using that. And this is a pretty deep mold, so you want to just kind of put it in sections as you go and make sure it is completely full enough that you get all those awesome details. He's got so many details in his beard and around his face and in his hat. It's just an amazing mold, and I'm so excited that they finally came out with the Santa one. Been waiting and waiting for that. So once we get it all flattened out, I kind of go around that little ribbed edge that they have on there, make sure all of the edges are clean, pull it out, and look at that, you guys. Gorgeous. So I am just going to lay it on top of the can for now, just to kind of give it its shape, and I'm going to tape it on there, let it dry for a few hours, and then we'll come back and take the tape off and gently remove that Santa. And you can see it's still pretty wet on the backside, but I'm going to go in with my Titebond glue now that I always use with my molds. I use a little paintbrush to kind of brush it on and get it into all the crevices there on the back side. Then I'm taking my heat gun and I'm going to actually dry that spot where the Santa was sitting. And then I'll replace the Santa on there, put the tape back on, and let it sit overnight until it dries completely. And then we'll come back and put some finishing details up on that. So this is the next day, and I'm going to go in with my Fusion's Furniture Wax in clear. And I'm doing a base coat in clear because I want to do the espresso on top of that, and it's going to allow me to control more of the color of the darker wax. And what I found when I was doing the clear on the red, it actually, because I didn't seal that DIY paint, it was kind of coming off onto the brush, and so it allowed me to have some red tint, which works really well on my Santa mold because I was able to tint his hat and give him some rosy cheeks, so that worked out really good. But I only have like a little bit of my clear wax left. Otherwise, I would be taking that and putting it into a different container so that I don't contaminate it. But you can see here my brush is just giving that hat just a little bit of a tint and his little rosy cheeks. And then I'm going to go in with my Fusions Espresso and do the rest of his face and the entire can, and I'll wipe it back, and it just looks so cool, you guys. It just gives it that really, really kind of old vintage vibe that I'm going for, and I absolutely love the old Santa look. You'll have to let me know what you guys think. So you can either buff off the wax right away like I'm doing here, or you can wait overnight, let it sit and cure, and then buff off the next day, and it would only take off just a tiny bit. So it's kind of the preference of what you're looking for, but I wanted some of this to come off, but most of it to kind of stay on there, and so I just barely touched it with the paper towel to remove the excess. I love using these cans for like putting Christmas trees in. They look so cool with a tree in them. I definitely wouldn't recommend like using it for food necessarily, but you can put like little toys inside there. Lots of fun things you can do to, create a fun little vignette. You can even little sprigs of greenery with some pine cones, just fun stuff. And so for the lid, I'm just going to go ahead and poke a hole in the top. I have a glass knob that I wanted to use to kind of spruce up the top a little bit. So I'm going to poke a hole in there with my screw gun, and then I'm going to just screw that on there, and it turned out super cool. I love it. Has that old vintage look to it with that glass knob on there. So this next project is something that I found at the Goodwill bins, and look at the top, you guys. It looks kind of orange in this video, but the top is like a red-orange color, and the minute I saw it, I knew exactly what I was going to do with it. So this is the color DIY beadboard, again from Sonnet's Maker Box. I love having little extra things of paint that I can use up on different projects. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with 2 coats of the beadboard, cover up that flower there, and then I am going to be creating a campfire marshmallow tin, you guys. One of my really good friends gave me some of these rice papers, and I am in love. I don't know what it is about these tins, but they just speak to my heart. I just love them, and so I wanted to create some more for my home decor, especially around Christmas time. And so I'm going to go ahead and just decoupage this on with my Fusion decoupage gel, and I'm going to do one on both sides. And then I went to Connie Hemmer, which is the painted photographer, her website, or actually, sorry, her YouTube channel, and she does these. And so I wanted to know how she did the rusty look, because hers are absolutely amazing. And so I watched her YouTube on that, and she uses DIY Summer Crush and Weather Wood, and she goes in and paints around all over pretty thick on the paint, and then she uses a mister spray and kind of smears it around with her finger like I'm doing here, sprays it quite a bit, so you'll want some paper towels underneath to catch all the water. But she was not shy about going in and just misting everything, and I was a little bit scared at first, especially when I was watching how she was doing it, but you guys just trust the process and you will get the coolest look ever. I'm telling you what. So again, I just kept misting and brushing and misting until I got the look that I wanted. Then I let it dry really well overnight, and then I used the Fusion's clear wax to seal it in, and it just turned out so cool. I love it. This is definitely my favorite project of today. And I don't know if I'm actually going to sell this one. I really, really like the top. And I did do that kind of rusty faux effect on the lid as well. So I think I'm going to keep this one for my own use this Christmas. Sorry guys, but I do have more, so I will be making more and I will put them on my website as soon as they're done. So this third project is again another tin, because you want to go in threes. So it's a little tiny tin. I'm using Fusion's Ash, which is like a light black color. And I'm going to go ahead and go in with 2 coats of that, let it dry really well. And then I have this really cool vintage Santa decoupage paper. I can't remember the name of it. I do have, I think, one more left on my website, but I think it's under like Vintage Santa. And I'm going to go ahead and decoupage that onto the front and the lid. And just to have like a little bottle brush tree that comes out of this is going to be a fun little effect for my vignette. Okay, so I had this little oak frame. It's like a little 5x7. Does not have the glass in it. But what I want to do is I am going to take some foam board. You can buy it at the Dollar Tree or Walmart. I'm going to cut a little piece of 5x7 foam board out. And I am going to use the IOD stamps to create a little postcard for this frame. And I'm going to be using the new IOD release stamp called Christmas Post, which is perfect for this project. So once I get it out, here is that new stamp set, and you can make the coolest little postcards. And I'm using the red, or I think it's called tomato, in IOD ink. And I'm just going to stamp up some images on there, put a little postmark on there, and then once that's all set and done, I'm going to just put it back into my frame and call it good. Now I do kind of want to go back and probably paint the frame. Not sure what color yet. I might do it white or cream and then distress back some of that wood. But I still think it turned out pretty cool. And I also used the IOD transfer set called Christmas Joy, and I just took the words Christmas Joy and put it on there, and I think it turned out cute. For this last project, I wanted to make a really big kind of sign to sit in the back of my vignette, and I'm going to be using the new IOD paint inlay. And I had these arched boards already on hand, so I'm going to go in with my picket fence, do 2 coats, and it's kind of becoming like a white, red, and black vignette theme, I guess. But I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to do the inlay. Now, I like to do my inlays with a clear coat. That way it doesn't have paint on it for the next time I use it. But you guys can use paint again. It's not, anything different except for you'll have a little bit of paint on your next project, which sometimes that's actually pretty cool. So I'm going to go in with my Fusions Matte Tough Coat and do just a really good coat, and then I'm going to make sure to spray down my inlay first before I lay it down and press it out. And then I always use a baby wipe, a wet baby wipe, to help press out all the bubbles and to make it stick really, really well. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for all of these pieces. Now you got to be careful with the clear coat because sometimes you'll seal in, which I've done a couple times, you'll seal in your inlay and it's kind of a little bit harder to get off, but it's still doable. So don't be afraid to try and test these out. These are so much fun, and it's just a beautiful way to take a piece of art and make it your own. And I love that it's actual paint that you're putting onto your project, and so it looks like it's a painted piece, and that's just super cool to me. So I definitely encourage you guys to try these inlays. You don't have to do it on a big surface at first. You can try little pieces. That's kind of what I did. Was I started with little projects and then I went to some of the bigger projects. So it's just a bunch of steps, but they're not hard steps. And so once you get all your pieces down, what you want to do is let it dry completely. It'll kind of turn like a cloudy white color. And once you see that, then you can spray your inlay again and let it sit for a few seconds and then start pulling it off, and you'll watch the magic happen. So that's always the fun, satisfying thing of these inlays, is to pull back and see that clear, crisp image. So here I'm just going to take my Mr. Spray bottle, spray it down, and I'm taking again another wet baby wipe and just going to pull back. Now I've sped this up just a little bit, so I usually pull a lot slower just in case. And then you want to make sure just to set these pieces aside because you can reuse them up to 2 more times. Just remember that they will always be a little bit lighter because the paint is decreasing each time you use it, if that makes sense. Now once this is all taken off, I'm going to let it dry. Actually, I'm going to use my heat gun. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to use my heat gun, dry it really well, and then I'm going to go ahead and seal it with my matte top coat. And what I have to do is I have to be real careful. I want to make sure to load my brush with quite a bit of product when I'm going over this inlay because it is paint, so it can reactivate with any kind of liquid. And so I went ahead and I used my matte and I went over it and kind of brushed it super light. Now I did get some smearing, but actually I liked it because I'm going for a really vintage vibe here. And so I want it to kind of be old and grungy And I meant to actually add dark wax to this after all was said and done, and I forgot that step, so I'm going to go back and do that later. But I think it still turned out really, really good and kind of cool because the Santa has some kind of brown areas in it, and after I sealed it with that top coat, but you'll see what I mean at the end. And there was some extra space above the Noel, so what I did was I grabbed some cedar pieces, some faux cedar and greenery, and then I'm going to go ahead and staple that onto the top. And then I had a really cool old vintage Santa ornament that I got from my friend Jennifer, and I went ahead and hot glued that in the middle of those cedar leaves, and it turned out super cool.
Headlights on the highway, if you only knew. Being back here always makes me think of you.
When the world is sleeping, do you think of me? With the road ahead's coming back again, coming back to me. I remember the long drives, the late nights in your car. I remember it all. Windows down, empty streets, you were all I used to know. You and I, forever, forever ago. And you used to drive me home. Now I drive alone. You and I, forever, forever, forever ago. This town's so quiet, this time of year. With the road ahead's coming back again, coming back to me. I remember the long drives, the late nights in your car. I remember it all. Windows down, empty streets, you were all I used to know. You and I, forever, forever ago. And you used to drive me home. Now I drive alone. You and I, forever, forever, forever.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed this week's video. Again, my favorite I think is that campfire marshmallow tin, but I do love them all because the whole vignette together just seems to be really, really cool. And so I will be back again on next Monday with another video. You all take care, have a great week, and we'll see you then. Bye.